Hi everyone, this is Dr. Keith again. It's time to learn some HTML. So you've gotten to this point in the class where you've learned how to access data from a database, you've learned how to pull data out again with queries in SQL, you've learned how to analyze data and do some pretty cool data prediction as well. Now it's time to learn how to display and share data, and one of the best ways to do that is through the web. So we want to teach you some of the fundamentals. This first video is going to walk you through some of the very most basic elements of the hypertext markup language and get you started. So I'm going to begin by working with a tool called Notepad. Now if you're on a Mac, you can do a couple things. If you have Parallels installed, then I'd say go ahead and open up Notepad on the Windows through Parallels. Otherwise, you can't actually use, there's no Notepad on a Mac. There's something called Text Edit, I think. But that one actually won't do HTML the way we need to here. So on a Mac you could download an app called Text Wrangler, or you're also welcome to go straight to a tool called Brackets. If you go to brackets.io, that's a common open source HTML editor. Feel free to download and install that, and I'll show that in the next video for all users. But for now, if you're on Windows, I want you to open up Notepad. Notepad is just a very basic, bare-bones text editor, but it'll work perfectly for HTML. So, start by copying and following along with me. HTML, close HTML. These things right here that I'm creating it's called an HTML element. We also, for short, call them HTML tags. All tags have an opening and closing, or we call this less than greater than signs. This tag opens a set of text that's going to be in an HTML document, and this version closes it. So everything that is going to be HTML should go in between these two tags. Tab in, create a head, close head. Head is a child element of HTML. A child is completely encapsulated inside of its parent element. So HTML is the parent, head is a child. Come down here and make another one. We're going to call this body. Body is also a child of HTML. What's body's relationship to head? Well, if we stick with the family analogy, it is a sibling, because body is closed, or excuse me, head is closed before body opens. They're both at the same level. They're both child elements of HTML. Let's make a child element of head here. We're going to call it title. So title is a grandchild of HTML. Notice this time I open and close title all in the same line. Now, HTML ignores white space entirely. The only reason I'm tabbing these things in is to make it easy to read. If you tab things in properly or nest them properly, it'll make it much easier to go back and edit your code and to find bugs. Now, why not break title down onto two lines like this? It's because I know I'm going to have nothing else inside of title. It's going to be the most base element. And inside of here, I'm going to put my resume. Alright, let's save this. Let's find a place on the desktop. I'm going to make a new folder. Notice I already have one here called IS201 website. That's the name of my class. If you're taking this as part of another class, feel free to make a similar folder. Call it my website or whatever you want. Go inside my website. Now this is important. We want to save this not as a text document, not .txt. We want it to be .html. However, let's not forget to give it a name here. Let's call this resume.html. Okay, so now it's saved. Let's open up Windows Explorer, navigate to your desktop folder, find the My Website folder you just created, and here's resume.html. Now, if you're not seeing .html, I want you to go here to View and check and make sure that this box right here, File Name Extensions, make sure this box is checked. If you're not seeing that box, it could be because your screen is a little small, and when you go to View, oh, well, it still shows it. View. Alright, I get right here and I don't see that option. Click on one of these. There we go. Show Hide. Now you can see File Name Extensions right there. So, check that box, and now it should show resume.html. Now, if you somehow have it looking like this, where it says resume.txt.html, just come in here and let's rename it, and just take off the .txt portion so it looks like that. Now notice mine, the icon is the Google Chrome icon. Yours may be different if you have a different default web browser. So whatever your default web browser is going to be the program that will open .html files. Well, notice we have it open here in Notepad. We edit HTML in any number of programs. Notepad is one of them. Notepad++, Dreamweaver is a popular one, Brackets, Sublime Text 3. These are all programs we can use to edit HTML, but HTML is always viewed through a browser. So double click on it and it's going to open resume.html in whatever your default browser is. So here's mine. I've got Chrome open, and notice it says file instead of HTTP or HTTPS. It's file//c, and here's the directory to get to resume.html on my screen. Why don't we see anything here? We made a title called My Resume. That's because title is what shows up right here in this tab. So far so good. Let's switch back. Now, in case you're wondering, I use AltTab to switch back and forth between open programs so quickly. So here's our HTML, and I'm going to resize this, move it up here, and then I'm going to grab my browser, also resize that, move it over here. There we go, so we can see both at once. So remember, I edit HTML in one program, but I always view it in a browser. So let's talk about these tags we've made. Head tag, this refers to anything that is about our web page. So stuff that goes inside of the head tag are other tags like title. Title means whatever text is wrapped in title will show up on the tab over there. The body element, anything that appears on the body of the web page will show up here in the body element. So let's start putting things in the body right now. Start by putting your name. So put your name. I hit Control S. You've got to save it. You can hit File, Save. Easier just to get used to learning the shortcuts. Hit Control S. Okay, over here on this side, refresh it. Now our name shows up. We now have our first web page, our first text showing up. So if you've gotten this far, consider yourself a web developer now. So let's learn a few new tags. Now, one rule. In the latest version of HTML, which is HTML5, the HTML head and body tags are actually no longer necessary. I could remove all of those and just have title and start putting text in. However, most of the web is still using these tags from older versions of HTML, and so if you ever edit someone else's, you're likely going to see them, so that's why I'm covering them here. Okay, next tag I want you to learn is the H1. Wrap your name here in an H1 tag. Save it, refresh. What does H1 do? It simply makes that text bigger and bolder. Okay, let's keep going. Next, let's put your title and some information. So I'm going to put Assistant Professor, Department of Information Systems, Marriott, of Management. So you could be putting here your name, junior, senior, sophomore, whatever you are. Misspelled that. You could put the program you're in and your major. Put your college name, the department, your college name, your university. All right, save it, refresh your page, and see what happens. It's putting it all on one line. So what does that tell you about the HTML in here? Well, remember when I told you that HTML ignores white space. Even though just because we've entered this down onto a different line here doesn't mean that the page is going to display it on a different line. It's because it ignores this white space right here and it treats it like that. So how do we force it down to the next line? That's what the BR tag is for. BR stands for break. We just put one at the end of each line. Actually, I'm going to leave that one off. Hit save, refresh. So you might be asking yourself, why didn't we have to put a BR after H1? Well, this should tell you something else about H1. H1 not only makes something bold and large, it also adds 2 line breaks after, or 2 hard returns after the closing H1. So each tag has a definition. So the browser has a library of each tag, and it knows what the definition for each is. So it looks at the definition and then displays the text that's been marked up with these tags appropriately. That's why HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It's not a programming language. We don't use HTML to calculate values or to do things. It simply marks up or describes text and images. and displays them on a page in a certain way. So, who comes up with tags? Well, that's a company, not a company, it's a standards body called the World Wide Web Consortium, right there. So let me pull them up if this can, my connection can do it. There we go. W3C. These are the people who decide what standard HTML is and come up with the definitions. Now, HTML, like I said, is now on version 5. There was an XHTML language for a while that they tried to get us to use. But now the latest version 5 has been ratified and is up and running. So anyway, that's just kind of FYI. Let's go back here and keep working on this. So 2 line breaks after H1. We have to put in our own line breaks for the rest of these things. Let's add something else. Come back here to the code. Let's now put in an image of ourselves. So to do that, we're going to use a tag called img. Now img, you'll notice a couple things. First of all, there's no closing tag for img. That's because an image doesn't really have a beginning and an end. There's just an image. We don't put anything in between an image. Second, I can't just put in an image tag. If I save that and refresh it, there's nothing there. That's because it doesn't know which image we're referring to. So we have to add something in here. After the G, hit a space and put in the text src equals and then open close double quote. So source equals, this is called an attribute. Every HTML element has one to many attributes that you can possibly use for it. So we put in an attribute by always putting a space after the element name, then we begin the attribute. Now every attribute has an equal sign and then the open close double quote where we put the value of the attribute. So let's go to Google Images and find a nice image to put in there of ourselves. We go to Google Images, let's go to, wow, Google's slow today. Let's search for Homer Simpson. Perfect, that's a handsome resume photo. Now if you go to Google Images like me, don't right click here and grab the image link. It won't work. Click on that image until it takes you to the site where the image is located, and I'm going to right click and say copy image address. If you're in a different browser, it might be copy image URL or something like that, but we want to get the URL of that image and then Control V and paste it in here. Now my URL is this big long ugly thing here, but make sure you get it right. The open double quote goes before the URL, close double quote after. That's all that we need. Control S to save that. Go back to your web page, refresh, and now here's my image. But that image is way too big. We need that to be smaller. So I'm going to add another attribute called width equals. So width equals, this is going to be width in pixels. I'm going to set that to 125. Save and refresh. Now that's a lot better. Okay, why is this happening? Why is the image here on the same line as Brigham Young University and forcing it down? That's because there's no line break after Brigham Young University. So let's put in a BR, save it, refresh. Now that goes down to the next line, but I would like a little more space. So I'm going to add one more BR right here and save that. Now, okay, we've got that. As you might guess, height is another attribute you can use. But why even use it? Because when you use either width or height, it maintains the aspect ratio of the image. Notice that we didn't just change the width, it automatically changed the height as well. If I try to put the height in and guess at what it should be, see, I don't know what the aspect ratio is. I forced it to 125 and now the aspect ratio is messed up. Better just to leave it off entirely and only specify one or the other. Okay, let's keep going. Actually, no, before we do, I want to show you a couple other things. So let's say this site, whoever they are, the LA Times, changes their website and moves this image somewhere else. So their image has now been moved and they've placed it, let's say, or they just changed the name of it to this. Save that, go back here, whoops, go back here, refresh the page. Our image, we get this broken link thing that says you've specified a source, but we can't find that image at that source. So my point of this is we may not want to refer to images on other websites. Rather, I'm going to right click on this image, save image as, and I'm going to put it, let's go to our My Website folder, I'm going to put it right in here in the same folder as resume.html. I'm going to change this now to Homer so it's an easier name to save as. I believe the original one was a .jpg. Is that what it was? Let's check and see. Oh, it doesn't specify. Let's pick a different one. Let's go to, nice, that's a good looking one right there. Here he is. I'm going to right click this guy, save image as, there we go, JPEG image. Change that to homer.jpg, save, oh, no, go to, I'm in the wrong folder, My Website, homer.jpg, save, perfect. So now what I'm going to do is rather than refer to this big long link, I now have homer.jpg, whoops, G, and I can simply refer to that file name because it exists right here in the same folder as resume.html. So I'm going to hit save, go back to my page, refresh, and there it is now. So notice that unlike a Word document where you embed an image into Word and they become one file, with HTML, these are together with this reference right here. So one other thing we can do to an image, in fact this is required by HTML standards, is we can use an attribute called alt. So I'm going to put in here my awesome photo and save it. Refresh the page. What happens? Absolutely nothing. So what is alt for? Well, let's say this link breaks and someone accidentally spells it Homar instead of Homer. Okay, this is broken now because there is no such thing as homar.jpg. So instead it displays the alternate text so you can know what was intended to be there. This is also useful for some other reasons. If you have a blind person who's using a screen reader that reads the text off the page to them, a screen reader can't tell them what's in a photo, but it can look at the alt attribute and it can tell them what the photo is supposed to represent. So this is a way of making your pages more user-friendly for disabled people. Also, when it comes to search engine optimization, search engines will look for keywords that appear not just in the body, but in things like alt attributes, and it will give you extra credit, so to speak, if a keyword, like for example, if your site's meant to sell jewelry, if you have the keyword jewelry or whatever certain type of jewelry it is showing up in alt tags, that can actually help search engine positioning. So that's everything you need to know about images. Let's now add some bullet points. So new tag, OL, close OL. OL stands for ordered list, meaning it's going to be a numbered list. Now one of the rules, one of the HTML standards is you can't have a list or anything inside of a list unless it's wrapped inside an LI tag. LI stands for list item. Let me give myself a bit more room here. There we go. Yeah, LI is list item, and since you're a student, I want you to put the first bullet should be education for you because you don't have a lot of experience yet. But let's make several LIs here. Let's make one for experience, let's make one for skills, and one for references. Go ahead and change the text here. Okay, save that, take a look at it. Alright, we have a bulleted list. OL automatically puts in numbers consecutively, all the numbers for each of our LIs, tabs them in. If my text were to wrap onto the next line, it would keep it aligned with the text right here. Lists are very useful. Let's say now we want to have bullet points under education. No, let's do it under skills. We want to add sub-bullets under skills for each of the things you've learned in this class. Okay, no problem. I can't put anything, remember, in my OL unless it's wrapped in an LI. So what I'm going to do is break this LI for skills down onto two lines. Here's the open and close. So don't forget, this is the open for skills, this is the close for skills. I've got to have both. Inside of here, but after the word skills that shows up in the main bullet, I'm going to start a new list. But instead of OL, this is going to be a UL for unordered list. and that means it's going to have bullets instead of numbers. But just like with an OL, I can't put anything inside a UL unless it's also wrapped inside of an LI. So let's put an LI in here, and let's list all the skills you're learning in this class in order. So you started with, let's see, entity, relationship, diagramming, you know, to keep things all in one line. I want you to see everything. I'm just going to put ERD. Let's copy that. Whoops. Home, down, copy. There we go. So then you learned, let's see, access, queries. You learned SQL. You then learned, let's see, we got into Excel. I think we did pivot tables next. Excel pivot tables. You also did solver. Let's put that on one line. Let's do, well, and you did, we'll list them as separate ones. Make your list look more impressive. Excel solver, Excel data analysis, tool pack. I think it was spelled something like that. Then you learned, let's see what else. We did Tableau. Let's copy a few more times. You've learned, well, possibly, depending on which version of this class you did, you may have learned Viz Minor. You are currently learning HTML and CSS. You are going to learn VBA programming. Okay, that's a good list. Let's save that, refresh. Here are your sub-bullets under skills. Not bad. So these are lists and bulleted lists. There's only one more thing I want to do with you in this video, and that's links. Let's create a link under, first of all, let's make a sub-bullet under education with your university name, and let's do a link to your university website. So see if you can pause the video and at least create the sub-bullet without watching me, and base it on the same format I've used right here to make these sub-bullets. Okay, I'm assuming you've given it your best shot at this point. Let's go ahead and add this in now. Okay, add the sub-bullet. We'll make this one an unordered list. And I'm just going to put one bullet item in here, one LI. Whoops. Put your university, whichever one you're currently attending. Save, refresh. So we've got our sub-bullet. But now I want to turn this into a link to BYU's homepage. So now this is sort of your call. You don't have to break this line down. I like to follow a rule, my own rule of not having multiple nested elements in the same line, but there is no rule about that. Your company might have a rule they want to follow, but it's up to you. I'm going to go ahead and move this down. Okay, I'm going to wrap my university name in an A tag, which stands for anchor. So close the A on either side of the Brigham Young University. We're going to have to add an attribute, obviously, just like we did with image, to specify which image we want. I need to add an attribute to tell it where to reference, or what website to reference. So I'm going to add href, which stands for hyperlink reference. And here's where we put the URL of the website. So there's an important distinction here. With the link, the text that becomes a link does not need to be the actual URL that you're linking someone to. The URL for where it's going to is specified here in the href. So I'm going to save this, refresh this page, and notice now Brigham Young University turns into, it's purple because my browser history says I've visited that before. Otherwise yours might be blue and then it underlines it. So click on my link. Yep, takes me to BYU's homepage. Let me go back. One other thing you might want to do, if we want to keep people on our site, you might specify another attribute called target. And the value you give it, this is a standard value, it's underscore blank. And what that means is open that link in a new page. So now it kept my old page, opened up BYU in a new page. So let me show the whole thing there just in case you need it. And that's our link. And that's all for this video. So you should have your name, some type of information about yourself, a photo, an ordered list with unordered sub-bullets, as well as one link going off page. Just in case you need it, let me expand our Notepad document here and show you slowly all of my code in case you have any bugs in your own code. Okay, that's it.